Okay, so this is the first thing we're talking about. You might expect we're going to talk about vegetables or something, but that's not actually where we're going to start. Because at the end of the day, if we get your nutrition perfect or we get your exercise perfect, and like we can have the perfect plan, but the bottom line is we're not changing a formula. We're not car mechanics. We're trying to change human behavior, and we're trying to change your behavior. If you're anything like me, that's probably the hardest thing you've ever done and the least successful thing you've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So changing human behavior is really hard. And it is even harder because most of us carry with us long lists of failures and mental models about how change occurs or doesn't occur, which often holds us back and makes it more challenging than it already is. So this is a concept that has definitely changed my life. It's something that I try to apply literally almost every minute of every day. The word that I'm going to share with y'all today, I've told people this before. I said this word is going to change your life, and I know that sounds crazy. And then I've had more than 3 people tell me, you were right, that concept actually did change my life. So it's my hope that this presentation, this concept, changes your life. It may not do it all at once, but I do think it has the power to do it. So the word is anti-fragility, and the topic today is like, how do we handle stress? How do we reframe stress? And for the purpose of this discussion, stress is almost anything. Stress is a new challenge. Stress is the holidays. Stress is learning something new. Stress is just basically all the things that we're contending with in our world. So
Life.
yes, life, literally life. Reframe.
Time.
Yeah. So here's the problem. Everyone wants to become competent to take ownership of their body and mind. That not just with your health, but with almost everything. We all want to become better people, but best laid plans, right? The unpredictable nature of life, just like you said, Nancy, life derails our progress. Illness, personal or of someone else. I've got a lot of clients that struggle to take care of their health because they've got to take care of someone else. Relationships. I'm just going to leave that there. I'm not going to say anything. Work. And then my least favorite one, or the one that hurts the most, is self-sabotage. Again, if you're like me, you can probably deal with a good amount of challenges that are external, but the problems that you create for yourself, those are the ones that hurt the most. It seems self-inflicted. So stresses like these are the main reasons we find ourselves, if we're overweight or unhealthy, just our body isn't where we want us to be. But more than that, like in our health journey and in our personal spiritual journey, whatever, we feel lost and overwhelmed very often. And we're designed to thrive. That's the problem, is that we're designed to thrive in life stresses. And if we aren't thriving, even in a stressful life, that's cause for internal reflection. And I hope to help create a space for reflection, and then a space for application to really kind of change the way we think and act. Just real quick, I'm gonna tell, like, so I'm definitely not the hero here, but I will say this term I've really tried diligently to apply in my life over the last 6 years. So for example, I had a semester in college where my car broke down, and I bought a motorcycle because it was the only thing I could afford. The motorcycle broke down. So I was going to school and was working. And I was actually going to school at 3 different Pellissippi campuses. And I was working and I didn't have a car. And it was that cold winter like 4 or 5 years ago. So one of the toughest semesters of my life. And it was absolutely like one of the greatest growth experiences of my life. Most of you could look back on just a season of your life that was really hard, and you realized that it really wasn't in some way, it was a blessing. I think I've told you, some of y'all this. I got a parasite at the very end of high school that stuck with me for about 3 years. And I felt so sick and was so sick, I had to literally become my own health coach and become my own cook. And that put me on the path to become a health coach. So almost every job I've held is because of that parasite. And that's kind of set off my career. This is a funny one. I was broke for a long time. It pushed me to join the National Guard, which has become a really, really, just kind of good outlet of service in my life that I'm glad I've done. And obviously, training with the Guard and going through basic training in tech school was a massive. I got engaged to my now wife, and 3 days later left for 7 months to be quarantined on a military base. It's shaped who I am. So all this to say, I'm just sort of using myself as an example, but some of the huge challenges in my life that I would not want to do again, nevertheless, have created the environment for me to be the person I am. And I'm sure many of you could look in your life. Anybody, was there a rough time you had in your life that has kind of forged you into an important part of your identity?
Well, my having Parkinson's.
Yeah, Nancy, we'll get there. If you don't mind, I'll share that at the end.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's absolutely. I'll let you share it too at the end. Yeah. I feel like that's a good way to. I'm not going to cut you off, but that's going to be a really.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the plan. We're going to define the word anti-fragile. So if you were moving your house and you would take all your glass, you take wine glasses, your fine china, you put it in a box, you label that box fragile, and you put it in a U-Haul, and the U-Haul gets rear-ended, and the U-Haul gets shaken up. If you open that box labeled fragile, what do you expect to see inside of it?
Broken pieces.
Broken pieces. Yep. Okay. So fragile, handle with care. Under stress, something that's fragile breaks. Got to look here. Okay. So what would be the opposite of something that is fragile? So if you were to put you were to tape on a box, this is the opposite of fragile. What would you expect to see if that got in a car wreck?
Sturdy, tough.
I would say tough, yeah.
Tough, sturdy. Okay. Almost everyone says robust. When you open that box, or some version sturdy, so it says it's labeled robust or sturdy. When you open that box, the U-Haul's been shaken. What do you expect to see inside of it?
The whole piece.
It stays the same, right? Okay. So is that the opposite of fragile? Fragile breaks, robust, it stays the same. So if you shake something that's fragile, it breaks. If you shake something that's robust, it stays the same. Is there a third category you think of? What would you expect the word is anti-fragile. So something's labeled anti-fragile. You shake it, you open it up, and what do you expect to see? It's not broken. It doesn't stay the same. It does something else.
Better than its original form.
It gets better.
Yeah.
And so right off the bat, can you name anything that gets better when you shake it? Doesn't have to be an object. Shake is apply a stress. Does it get better?
Well, I think about football teams or sports teams that go through a hard time, then they get better at the end of the season.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
I'm not thinking of the balls.
Yeah. Okay. Why are the balls? Tell me about that.
I said she must not be thinking of the balls.
Oh yeah.
No, I wasn't. I graduated from Georgia, so I'm sorry.
Carol, that's a great. Sports teams are a great example, and I would argue I've been on sports teams that were very fragile, and I've been on sports teams that were very anti-fragile. The sports teams that were anti-fragile, when the best player gets hurt, someone else steps up, and other players begin to say, well, now that's a role that I'm going to have to learn how to score because our best scorer is down. And then if that player comes back, now the whole team's better. But a fragile team relies on one player. They say, well, our best player went down. Now we can't.
But I would say that she said something that gets better. Robust it stays the same, but it's also potentially breakable under the right circumstances.
So anything is there is a point where almost anything can break.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that. we'll get to that real quick. So an anti-fragile thing gets better out of stress. This is the mythical hydra. You know what happens when you cut a head off the hydra?
Grows
More
more.
heads.
Yeah, more heads come out. So
More heads come out.
The author of the book, Antifragility, says that the ancients were onto something. I think they were the ancient Greeks were pointing to this law. Because so much in nature gets better through stress. In fact, so it took you all a second. Actually, most groups, when I ask them, can you name anything that gets better with stress? Most people, they don't really actually answer anything. You came up with sports teams pretty quickly. So that's pretty good. I'm gonna I hope to show you virtually everything that survives over time is anti-fragile, because it has to be. So biology, anti-fragility is the fundamental rule of biology. Your cells, it dies and it gives you 2 more cells, just like the hydra. DNA mutation. If a cell makes a mistake in DNA mutation, 9 times out of 10, it deletes that cell immediately. Your muscles get stronger when you do what, Barbara? What morning of the week are your muscles getting stronger?
Yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays going to the gym.
Yeah.
When you're working out, yeah, they get stronger.
Yeah, so you work out Tuesdays and Thursdays, so Wednesday and Friday morning, your muscles are getting
They're
stronger.
sore.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens when you work out? You tear those muscle fibers and then they regrow and they become stronger. If someone is hospitalized, they lay in their bed for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, they'll oftentimes have almost irreversible muscle loss, and that they'll never have the frame that they had. Their bones get weaker as well. So almost everything that thrives in our world of stresses is anti-fragile. Viruses is a great example. Every time a virus passes from a person, it actually gets a little bit better at surviving. And one of the things that happens, it actually gets less likely to kill their host. So viruses actually get less deadly over time, because if they kill too many people, they don't have anywhere to live. Muscles, bones, this is one that we didn't say, but your brain, learning is an anti-fragile experience. You probably, and you went to school at Georgia, Carol, they give you a quiz before the test. Very often that quiz is really hard. If you're like me, you fail the quiz, you take it home and you got 10 questions that you need to figure out the answer to. Caterpillars, why did I put caterpillars? Every time I make these slides, I put different things in there and I got to figure it out. Oh, caterpillar goes into its cocoon, it goes dormant for a little bit, comes out as a butterfly. One time I gave this presentation and somebody said, can you name anything now after we talked about it that's anti-fragile? He said, ants. I was like, okay, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't know how. Anybody know why or how ants are anti-fragile?
I don't know, but they're hard to kill. And we bought some property and we had to put, my husband put poison on the fire ant hills. And those things are tough. So maybe they do come, maybe the strong survive and they're stronger and they breed more or something.
Yeah, so this class was during the summer and he had gone out, he had one anthill in his backyard and he kicked it down and kind of destroyed it. And he went back out the next morning and there were 3 anthills in his backyard. So when they're being attacked, they section off in colonies and build more. Interestingly, coyotes, cities all across America will try to get rid of coyotes. Coyotes will realize they're being hunted and they'll band together and actually mate and make a bunch more coyotes. So the more you try to get rid of coyotes, the more you have. Wine. So another thing that happens is with age. So you could say time is a stressor. So there are a lot of things that actually get better over time. Wine is a great example of that. And wine just so happens to be one of the oldest drinks that's been around with us forever. So wine's a great example. And storytelling, my personal favorite anti-fragile bit of reality. Why is storytelling anti-fragile?
The story gets better every time you tell it.
Okay. Think about just one story. What is the typical, why do we like stories? I guess is a way I could ask that.
Entertainment.
Okay. What is entertaining about a story? or what's dramatic about a story? What's a story that engage? Someone tell me a movie or a book that you read recently that you liked that was like a novel or a narrative.
Star Trek movie.
Okay, Star Trek. Can we do Star Wars? I know.
Sure, yeah, do Star Wars.
Do we all know Star Wars? Because I don't know Star Trek as well.
I don't know either.
Okay, so Star Wars. You have a character. The character would be, you know, Leia or Luke or just someone in the galaxy. And the problem is that the Empire is back, right? The problem is that these characters can't live their lives, and Darth Vader is back. Well, Darth Vader is the stress applied to these characters in a galaxy far, far away that we wouldn't care anything about. But the stress of a bad guy, the stress of a villain, or a great challenge is the thing that actually compels us to storytelling. It's what grips us. So every compelling human story has a hero who must overcome some external obstacle and sometimes an internal obstacle. That's why stories resonate with us, is because we are longing to accomplish something in our lives, but we all recognize that there's so many barriers in our way and we don't know if we're going to be able to make it. But a really good story shows us a hero who grows through a trial and becomes a better version of themselves. So, you know, my favorite, Moses spends 40 years in the wilderness, right? What are you doing 40 years in the wilderness? Totally waste of time, right? Well, he ends up being able to take the Israelites through that same wilderness later that he spent so long in. He knows the wilderness. So he goes through this massive trial that takes up a whole lifetime that then later is redeemed. Joseph is sold into slavery in prison. Jesus' is death, and then his resurrection, his power comes from his resurrection. There's no resurrection without the death. So there's no great arc of salvation without that trial that's been applied. So yeah, like a movie is often, you know, Star Wars, you know, Luke Skywalker has to overcome Darth Vader. So, you know, we're all Luke Skywalker in some story. And it's sort of in our own story. Here's a great, I love telling this story, and I hope it resonates. Anybody familiar with the London Blitz? You know when that was?
We're talking World War II.
Yeah, the beginning of World War II, from 1941 to 1942, the Germans waged a daily bombing raid on London.
Yeah.
And it was just like this was going to go on inevitably. Like this was how the Germans were going to wage war on England, and just the people of London just sort of pretty much thought that this was going to be the new normal until London wasn't there anymore. So psychology experts prepared and predicted that hospitals would be overrun by people who were having mental breakdowns and psychotic breaks, and just because of constant panic attacks, constant unknown. Because again, there's more than 1 year of constant bombing, and the threat that this was going to go on forever. Anybody want to guess what happened?
Churchill told him to have a stiff upper lip.
Churchill would certainly be considered one of the more anti-fragile leaders. Well, actually what happened was, literally, not only did more people not have panic attacks and psychotic breaks in the bombing, but literally insane people were asking to leave the psych wards to go help their neighbors who were now under attack. And the exact opposite happened. They vacated the hospitals, they vacated the asylums, and people who were considered mentally unstable and unfit actually went back out into society to help others. One of the authors or journalists at the time, I could find the resource, but said, we must have neurotics driving ambulances, because, you know, like they're all out there, and everybody basically just joined the war effort together. The application of that stress allowed the people of London to see deeper into themselves and to overcome and to become better versions of themselves. Again, Nancy, like you said, like there is a breaking point. I'm not advocating nobody wants the blitz, but the point is a trial like that often pushes us to become better. So what are your stresses? Are they work, family? Is it friends? Is it sick loved ones? Is it personal failure? Renovating a house? I always put just kind of new things in here based on what's going on. It's probably a little bit of all of these. And the number one thing that we want to help you think through for the next 6 months is that, the world often says, hey, stress is bad. If you want to be healthy, you got to get away from stress. That is bogus. Every single thing on this list is a really good thing, and you need to contend with it. In fact, for your brain health, for the health of your body, you sort of have to contend with it. And the fastest decline in cognitive health is after people retire. So the gift that we're
Is
going
what
to try
after people retire?
Yes, usually when people stop working, they stop having that brain stimulation. They don't have the schedule as much anymore, and so they decline fast. So our mission is actually, as your coaches, as your advocates, we're actually going to lay a little bit of a load, a little bit of a heavier load on you over the next couple of months, and we're going to try to help you embrace the load that you have. And the reason why we're going to do that, we're going to encourage you to embrace your work, to embrace the trial of family, to try to maintain your relationship, take care of your sick loved ones, to address personal failure. And if you're moving in a home or relocating or stuff like that, we want you to take that on with vigor. We want to help you do that. But the biggest thing we want to help you do is reframe that anytime we identify a stress in your life, rather than trying to run from it, we are going to absolutely try to create an environment where you embrace it. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Remember, the reason for that is because things in biology don't survive if they are not anti-fragile. The sad reality is if you don't have an anti-fragile mindset to taking control of your health, something is going to derail you. But if you have an anti-fragile mindset, everything on your schedule that seeks to derail you is actually going to make you a little bit better. Think of it as a quiz. The clients that I have that say, hey, I didn't have a great week this week. I thought I was prepared and I really wasn't. I set up my schedule. I didn't make it happen. That's a great learning experience. What new supports do we need to insert into your environment to make sure that you can be successful? And then just real quick, just anti-fragility really in many ways is just ancient wisdom that we need to be reminded of. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. The verse in James, I think it's 1:1-4. Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, knowing the testing of your faith brings perseverance. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. And again, this is sort of ancient wisdom, but I love what C.S. Lewis says. People need to be reminded more than they need to be instructed. So we're going to, as your coaches and advocates, we're going to continue to remind you of this wisdom. And we're going to help you, because we can't keep unloading stresses of your life, probably. We're going to help you try to contextualize, reframe that, and accept it. And it's going to be good for your body and your brain. Real quick, this is just like a really key health-related metric that's really hard to accomplish is 100-pound weight loss, right? Recently, actually, this was in the last 2 years, a researcher studied, I think it's 500 people who lost 100 pounds and kept it off. I think it's the only 500 people that did it. And the researcher was looking for their commonalities. And she said she was surprised to see that they universally expressed that they began to view challenges as opportunities, whereas those who failed view challenges and their inadequacies as insurmountable. She said, as far as we can tell, this is the number one predictor and determiner of those who are successful and those who aren't. And here's the good news. What's the really, really good news about that?
Well, you're never without challenges, so you always have opportunities.
Okay, perfect. You always have opportunities. The other good news, it's not about skill. It's not about who you have been. That is simply a choice that we can make. And you really can choose that. And that means that you can do it.
You can let go of the past and look forward. Forget about the past.
Don't forget about the past. Embrace the past. Let your past failures move you forward. Again, like personal failure, this is the one that personal failure is, I said at the beginning, it's the most painful one, right? But that would be a stress that it's really easy to say, hey, run away from that. Don't just get away from that. I don't want you to run away from it. I would actually really love to see, like, it's actually one of the first things I do with a lot of clients is I just go through, hey, like what diets have you tried in the past? Like, what have you failed in the past? And then just kind of diagnose why did it not work. So Barbara, don't let go of that. If you let go of that past, you're missing a lot of data that can teach you.
They say experience is the best teacher.
Exactly. And experience is, remember time as being a stressor, just like that wine, you give it more time. Experience is just is just multiple stresses applied over time.
Well, my father taught me that life is just a series of problems. And unless you learn to be a good problem solver, you're not going to be happy.
Again, that is ancient wisdom that we need to be reminded of. That is perfect. Absolutely. And in many ways, life is a series of problems. Okay, so I'm going to give you a challenge, and this challenge, again, I said I'm going to add a little bit of a load to your life, and I hope that load, I hope you let that make you anti-fragile. Take ownership of your health, just kind of like what you said, Barbara. Take ownership of your past because it's not what you want it to be. So as you look back, own that. Hey, this is not where I want to be. In many ways, like, it's not. We're going to change all of y'all's behaviors and be like, man, I wish I'd done this 10 years ago. Yeah, sure. But it's not really your fault. Just own that that's not how you'd lived. And we're going to learn from that. The other thing is expect big interruptions. Guys, we're going to be here for 6 months. Y'all are going to have some big things come up in this 6 months. I've never had a group of more than 5 people that didn't have a really, no reason to be morbid, but something big happens in 6 months. Then the other thing is, hey, take out a pen and paper if you got it right now. What are the big obstacles in your life right now that you can be thankful for? What are the challenges that you're having to struggle through that are giving you a daily opportunity to grow or improve in something? And that sounds a lot like a daily practice of gratitude that we know would really change our lives, but we struggle to live in. So that is something that every day I really do try. Like, when I look at my life and I say, like, this is one of the harder seasons of my life in this area, I'm like, oh, I should pay attention to that. So whether it's like something with a relationship or with a family, or like maybe it's been just a really bad year, if it's been particularly bad in any one area, that's definitely something that I'd encourage you to kind of think through and engage. I could share, I won't, it's easier for me to share things in the past for obvious reasons, but I try not to throw any of my current problems on, but I've definitely got some things that if you want some more specifics from me, just to help you think through yours, I can give them. But okay, so become anti-fragile in all areas of your life. Let challenges refine you, because if you don't, like you said, Nancy, life is pain and a bunch of problems. If you don't let challenges refine you, chronic pain and frustration are right there. Because if you're not growing from the stresses, you're going to be broken down by the stresses. Like our weight, it's going to be increasingly challenging to control our weight. So many people go through a hard time, and that's when their weight kind of balloons. We need to that's just kind of one example. I used weight as kind of a proxy for your health. And the biggest thing, again, personal failure, the more I give this discussion, the more I think about it for myself, becoming discouraged with yourself is the ultimate way to not be anti-fragile. When you get to a point where you say, I just don't even believe in myself anymore, that's when you've kind of given up the opportunity to grow from challenges because you've kind of shut yourself down. So become anti-fragile, you're going to be so discouraged with yourself, it's going to be very, very hard to continue to grow. When you do become anti-fragile, you will age well because you're going to become a better person with each trial. And you really will be that wise person. Is anybody familiar with Viktor Frankl? Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz and Dachau. His wife, the two concentration camps, the two most brutal concentration camps under Nazi rule. His wife ended up being killed in one. And he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And it's basically, it's a very famous book. It's one of those, Carol, it'd be one of the things I'd recommend right after some of those other. Nancy, I know you would love it. He just wrote about this experience. And the crazy thing was he realized that in this concentration camp, he was in the perfect test case to observe how humans either make it through trials or how they give up and lose hope. And that's what kept him alive. Anyways, he says, I would rather be an old man full of accomplishments than a young man full of potential. And I love that. It's such a different way to think through. Everybody bemoans the fact that they're getting older, but he brought gratitude to the fact that, like, look at all that I've had the opportunity to do. So if you become anti-fragile, you will relish the getting older, and you'll relish the opportunities that you've had and the relationships that you've built. You will attain and maintain a healthy weight through stressful times and become a comfort of your body in the hardest times of the year, like the holidays. Your body will become strong and fit and energetic because you're going to be leveraging stresses to build you up. And you're going to be grateful even in the hardest times because you know that those hard times are going to refine you. One missing piece, some stresses, just because stresses can refine you and make you better, doesn't mean, this kind of goes to what you said, Nancy, doesn't mean, like, I'm not saying just willy-nilly expose yourself to all stresses, right? Some stresses you ought not to tolerate. So these stresses we're talking about are mostly the unavoidable chaos of life, the relationships that you can't back out of. But there is a breaking point, and there are stresses that can be turned into joys. So we'll talk later in the future about stresses that you can avoid and that you probably should offload. Like Barbara, for example, we were talking about kind of organizing your emails. So your brain is. That's a great example of, like, a way that we can offload something to allow you to be more focused. So, hey Nancy, can I read your poem now? I muted you for a second just because I was getting feedback. Okay, so one of the best examples of anti-fragility I've seen in a really long time. Nancy, thank you so much for this.
Sure.
This is called God's Plan. God told me one day, I have a gift for you, but you're not the only one I'm giving it to. Sketching and painting will be your new skill. Writing poetry and stories simply at will. Who else will have this wonderful gift bestowed? Oh, thousands of people you don't even know. Still lives, portraits, and landscapes too. Just a few of the gifts I'm heaping on you. Use acrylics, watercolor, or even oil. Create awesome artwork whenever you toil. Haiku, sonnets, and limericks galore. Just wait and see what you have in store. But there's a drawback to receiving this present. You will also receive Parkinson's, and that's not so pleasant. Nightmares, tremors, slurred speech, and stumbling gait. Oh, please tell me more, I can hardly wait. Stiff muscles, blank looks, and drool on my shirt. I don't like this gift, I'm not sure of its worth. Well, I can't take it back, so don't even try. And it will do you no good to sit there and cry. Just try and deal with it as best as you can and try and understand why it's part of the plan.
Wow.
R- Really, really powerful.
Mhm.
Nancy, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So Nancy, you basically discovered your artistic talent after Parkinson's, right?
Yes.
And you've gotten some beautiful, hey, I think I've got those paintings. I'm going to send those out in the email. The paintings that you sent me, I'll attach them to the email. You can see some of the stuff that she's done. It's beautiful. So she's written poetry and painting, and you had no outlet for that before.
No,
Screen.
I didn't know I had the talent.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So again, I mean, oh yeah, you go. Sorry.
I took part in a study at Oxford University that looked at people with Parkinson's and how they got more creative after they got Parkinson's.
Wow. So that's a great example, Nancy, that I'm not, this discussion is not about just like a platitude of like, just be grateful for hard things. It's not like, oh, it's all going to be okay. It's all going to work out. That's not the point.
No.
That's not helpful.
No.
The point is, Nancy, you've had just quite a trial. And the more I've learned about Parkinson's, the more it's a devastating disease. And you found a way to bring a beautiful peace to something that's not peaceful. And that's been powerful for me. And so thank you for that blessing. I really, really just appreciate you, and I'm encouraged by you. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right, y'all. So I'm going to, I have this recorded. I'm going to send it out if y'all want to rewatch it. But basically just, hey, over the next 6 months, if you've got a trial that comes up, whether it's, hey, I'm not totally sure if I'm doing as much as I ought to, or hey, like I wrote up a plan for you and it ended up like I made kind of a mistake on it, or any kind of challenge that comes up, I'm just going to really kind of encourage us to think of it as a learning experience, basically everything that comes up. And I'm going to definitely do my best when, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to try to learn from those. And when we mess up together, let's learn and grow from that. And I hope that in 10 years, I'm a really, really good coach, thanks to y'all's and my mistakes that I'm going to make in the next little bit. But no, I really do. I want us to continue to learn from all this. And I just, anytime you've got something that doesn't go right, I want us to stop and say, okay, what can we do? How can we leverage this? How can we use this? Any questions before I let y'all go into the holidays? The two things that I wanted to check and make sure, everyone should have gotten the meal matrix, and everyone should know that I'm asking you to just do these 3 things and then pretty much just keep sugar out of your alcohol. Are we all good with that? Does that seem like a pretty good holiday plan where you're going to be able to enjoy it with no guilt and enjoy feasting and fellowship?
Funny thing, I was just experimenting on a carrot recipe, and I was putting the Marsala wine, and it said buy the Italian, really, like the better Marsala wine, and then you add a 1/3 cup of sugar, and you coat and you thicken up this sauce before you put the carrots back in the pan. And I thought about you. I was like, oh, that would be alcohol with sugar. But good thing the alcohol does, it evaporates. So
so that would actually be fine. Yeah, that's okay. No, I
but
would
I
not
do
drink that Marsala wine. I wouldn't drink it straight.
I could combine bourbon.
Yeah. So the carrots and bourbon. Yeah, that's great.
Good idea.
Butter and rosemary.
Okay, I'll
love
make note. That
bourbon glazed carrots. Yeah.
Yep.
So on, I know I asked you this the other day, on this meal matrix.
Yes.
Give me the 10,000 feet up again on just how, when I look, I've got this up on my computer screen, and because I eat a lot of chicken. So
Yeah.
if it's just chicken all day, every night for dinner, that's cool. But are these saying what's 115 grams? That's
Okay,
what
so
threw me off.
115 grams is, and I put everything in grams, which is a little bit annoying, but I've recently made the transition myself. So I went to the metric system, and it really is simpler. You can weigh small things in grams and big things. It simplifies on the scale. The reason why I put that number is because that's like about the size that you're going to get from a restaurant. And what you can see here is 114. Sorry, my dog's saying hey to my dog. So the 115 grams is any lean protein is biomolecularly pretty similar. And so whether it's 115 grams of chicken breast or rotisserie chicken, tuna, shrimp, you're going to get about 30 grams there. That's just a baseline. It's just a baseline. So 115 grams on the scale of chicken is 35 grams of protein. So this is a protein number. And the reason why I want
the
you
light
to know
blue.
yes, okay. This is the protein grams.
Okay.
Because so of that 115 grams, you're going to have maybe like 70 grams of water, 5 grams of fat. And so that's the absolute weight. This is the protein weight.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing is 115 grams.
I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. 115 grams, about the size of a male's palm, or female to that first line in your wrist. So you can begin to, if you go to a potluck or something, you can begin to kind of estimate how much you're eating.
So when I put a chicken breast, boneless chicken breast on the little scale, and I tell it to do it in grams, and it's 150 or whatever it is, because it's a larger piece of meat.
Yep.
That's the whole volume. Sorry, I'm bad with math. That's the whole volume of grams.
Yep.
But when we put it into that tracker, it converts the protein for us. It tells us it's 35 grams of protein.
Yeah. So let me just put in like chronometer chicken breast, 165 grams. I logged that. Now it's given me the value. That's 51 grams of protein, 7 grams of fat, and 0 grams of carbs.
Okay.
So a restaurant, so you guys are going to figure out, actually, I probably need to be eating a little bit more than 115 grams. And a restaurant's never going to give me more than 115 grams. And what that shows is the American diet's pretty darn low in protein. So I'm just giving you that ballpark number. So for someone like you, Carol, probably like 130, 135 grams is like a pretty good baseline for like what you're serving.
Right. That's what I think so too.
And net carbs is carbs minus fiber? Yes.
I want you to go ahead and track total carbs because I want to see your fiber. It's just a little bit simpler. Yeah, so just track net carbs, and your chronometer should be set to net carbs. You can go in there and say track net carbs. It'll have an option for you to adjust that. And again, what we're going to teach you is how much protein do you need? How do you get really good quality fats in your diet? And then how do we dial up or down carbohydrates for either like fat loss or to help you build a little bit of muscle? And so in 6 months, you're going to know objectively how food, because the macronutrients are the major components of food. 99.9% of your food is macronutrients. So you're going to know, how do these affect my body? Now, the micronutrients are important as well. A lot of the lab work that we looked at is related to your micronutrients. But what we'll do with this is kind of teach you how those work. And again, this is not the gospel. There's some good healthy carbohydrates on here that aren't on here that you can eat. There's some fats. I didn't put cheese on here, but you can eat good quality cheese. So it's not the gospel. I'm not giving you a meal plan. We're going to try to teach you how to eat. A meal plan is fragile because if your meal plan, if something doesn't fit your meal plan, you're out of luck. But this is a learning experience that will allow you to be anti-fragile. When you go to a restaurant, a potluck, or a Thanksgiving next year, you're still going to know what you're eating.
Okay.
And here's the beauty of it. You will remember this and know this for the next 30 years. So take 4, 5, 6 months track your food, learn what this is, and you will never forget that information.
Thank
Sound
you.
good? Yeah, absolutely. Y'all, I'm looking forward to it. Enjoy the holidays. The scale's going to be up a couple of pounds after. It's nothing to stress about. We're going to get right back into your plan when you come off of it. No need to feel guilty about that. Enjoy it. I do, there's a reason why I ask you to load that protein and vegetables, is because your Thanksgiving meal isn't going to have much protein other than the turkey. And if you eat those protein and vegetables, you're going to get good protein, good fiber and micronutrients, and it's going to keep you from binging too much on the sweets. If you don't eat any protein, you'll eat like this much pie. If you do eat your protein, your body's naturally just going to regulate you down to a smaller serving, and you're going to feel fine. It'll also blunt the blood sugar effect. All right, y'all. If y'all have got anything, shoot me a message. We'll be in touch. Thanks for joining tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.